Welcome to the Healthy Relationships Initiative podcast. Our goal is to provide information and tools to help you build happier, healthier, and safer relationships of all kinds. To learn more about HRI, please visit www.guilfordhri.org and check us out on social media at GuilfordHRI.
Hello, and welcome to today's Healthy Relationships Initiative Relationship Booster. We're glad you're here joining us today. My name is Christine Murray. I'm the Director of the Center for Youth, Family, and Community Partnerships at UNC Greensboro, as well as I oversee the Healthy Relationships Initiative. The Healthy Relationships Initiative is a partnership between UNCG and the Phillips Foundation, and our mission is to promote happy, healthy, and safe relationships of all kinds in Guilford County and beyond. And we invite you to check us out and learn more at our website at guilfordhri.org or connect with us on social media at GuilfordHRI. Before we get started, I wanted to cover a few quick sort of housekeeping things for those of you who are here for our live program. First of all, you are able to use the chat room and submit questions during the live program. And the best way to do that is through the chat room and to send a message through the chat room to our moderator, Camilla Dos Santos. And before you sign off today, in the chat room, Camilla will be posting a link to the feedback form, and we would love to get your feedback on today's program. We always collect that information to help us learn what we're doing well and ways that we can improve. Today's relationship booster will be covering a pretty sensitive topic, so we're glad to have a great expert here with us. Before we introduce her, I'll share with you that the topic is rebuilding after an affair. So our featured expert today is Dr. Jane Rosengranden. So Jane, thanks so much for being here today.
Thanks.
And you are a counselor who's worked with lots and lots of couples over the years, and so we knew that you were the right person that we wanted to bring in to talk about this topic. So if you would just give our audience a little bit of background about your work and why this topic in particular is of interest to you.
Well, again, I appreciate being invited. And it is of great interest to me. I work with a lot of couples. I'm a private practice, licensed marriage and family therapist. I'm a licensed clinical therapist. Together. But I've had some great opportunities to learn over the years. Florida College, University of Connecticut. There was a master's program in marriage and family therapy. And here at UNCG, actually, I got. And I've been in private practice almost 40 years. And so I work with couples, I work with individuals, I work with families. I'm particularly interested in working with couples because I realize they're at such a pivotal point in the family. They're such a critical unit. It's really important. Children, extended family. This marriage is really a very important piece. Couples and have the opportunity to really look into and work with couples through how we put our relationship back together. Really.
And that's such a complicated issue that couples bring to counseling. And I just think of all your years of clinical experience and all the couples you work with, it's probably impossible to count the numbers of couples that you've really worked with. So I know you're going to have a lot of great insights to share about today's topic. I guess as I was thinking about today's topic too, I was thinking that, we're going to be focusing on rebuilding after an affair, but of course some of what we talk about might apply to other kind of related issues like other violations of trust in couples' relationships and couples sort of coming back from the brink of possibly the end of their relationship. And we should add, too, of course, that sometimes an affair is something that leads couples not to stay together. But for the most part today, we are going to be focusing on those couples that do decide to stay together and at least try to rebuild their relationship. So, of course, we all know that if a couple experiences an affair, that is a very difficult thing to come back from. And in fact, for a lot of people, I think they say, that would be a deal breaker for me. I would not be able to do that. But we do know it is possible to rebuild. So what would you like to as a starting point about just the possibility of rebuilding after something like this?
Well, I think that the most important thing is to rebuild after an affair, you really have to rebuild trust. And that really requires not keeping something. It really requires a very intentional effort, specifically by the person who has had an affair, to bring back the trust. And there's some excellent therapeutic approaches now for through that process. But I would think probably the most important thing that stands out to me is that it's not something that we minimize. And it's not something that people are going to get over.
So it takes a lot of time and a lot of effort, and it needs to sort of accompany just a realistic perspective of what's happened and what's going to need to be done. And along those lines, you said don't sweep it under the rug. And related to that, I would think that couples who do try to just, sweep it under the rug or just try to move on before really working through all of these issues that we're talking about, that would probably make it more likely that the relationship wouldn't be able to thrive after that. Are there other things that you've seen from your clinical experience that might kind of separate those couples who are able to really rebuild a healthy relationship versus those that might try but not be able to get there?
Well, I think that it really depends on how intentional people are in terms of individual therapy, couples therapy, and sticking with it. And understanding this is just not a quick process. As I was preparing for today's discussion, I was looking at charisma path model, which I've been working with for the last 20 years, and noticed that loyalty is really the backbone of a relationship. Loyalty is really about making decisions together, learning about sexual intimacy, and another important part of the relationship to stay connected. And I would say that in couples in which it's not a great outcome, there's two categories really. There's couples who try to sweep it under the carpet and just kind of pretend and go on. There are couples that really dedicate themselves to staying home relationships, really involved, essentially falling back in love. And then there's also, it's very important to distinguish between what is a one-time affair and what is a sexual condition. So I would say those three factors about right up to that, which couples can kind of gauge, are they trying to just get this beyond them, get this behind them and just move on, or are they willing to really look at it and really consider the nature of their relationship, satisfied, whether they're happy, or whether this is something that can come up again.
And let's talk about that a little bit more too, because I think that's a good overview to this topic too. So sometimes we talk about, an affair, and we're saying rebuilding from an affair. Even our title for today's program is a little bit limiting because, of course, somebody could have a one-time affair, but it also could be a long-term single affair. We could be talking about, as you said, sex addiction or multiple affairs or different patterns. And I guess I'm curious from your perspective, how do those differences impact what needs to happen in terms of the rebuilding process? Is it the same or does it look different?
Well, it looks different because if there are multiple affairs and multiple transgressions against the marriage and so forth, that is a whole different process. The individual really has to begin to look at it. There's some pattern there, but what is that about? Why is that happening? Very different from the one-time. Of course, when you talk about a one-time affair, you had mentioned, it's an emotional and physical affairs. And sometimes it can be more difficult to work with an emotional affair because that does mean people do fall in love. That might be a one-time affair, but it can be an extremely intense. And that can be very hard to work through because it's very complicated. If someone has fallen in love and they have an attachment, and yet then their spouse finds out then it's really a question about, well, all right, we can sort of rip this person away from whoever they're getting attached to over there. But they're going to be really sad. They will have experienced a tremendous loss. So then we have two spouses who are suffering loss. One who realizes that their mate has been cheating, and they have to go through their feelings of anger, of grieving the marriage that they thought. But then the couple, the individual who has cheated is there in love with someone. That's a whole other component. And ideally, when couples have problems, one is supportive of the other. Very difficult, though, for the cheating spouse to receive the kind of support they might otherwise want, because they're losing the love, everything they value, they put everything on the line. So it's
very complicated, right? I mean, to handle all of those dynamics. I'm glad you brought that piece up, because that is the next thing that I was thinking to talk about and ask you about would be, different types of affairs. Like if people talk about just an emotional affair or a physical affair or something that's both. And, when I taught a sexuality counseling class for years, and a lot of times when we talk about it with the students, a lot of them would say, they can't even really imagine maybe like a physical affair that didn't also have some emotional component. So, in some ways, I think these little buckets we try to put things in to make them feel more easy to understand. Sometimes they're a little bit more of, kind of a surface level way to think about things. And I would add too, I mean, at what point does something even become an affair? Especially when you think about the presence of technology, flirting online, or even a flirtation, or, I think that's a fine line too. So I think I've just given you a lot to talk about in one sort of question, but what are your thoughts on how people can understand all these different pieces and what it might look like in their relationship?
Well, I think if we can start at the beginning, pre-affair, let's start there. You had asked for me to kind of put together some summaries of thought. And my first one that popped in my mind, if you have not had an affair, don't. Just don't. You are asking for so much trouble in your life. That's the point to really get help from your mate. Them and say, I've developed this attraction to somebody. Takes a lot of guts. The couples can agree ahead of time. Sort of like they say the vow, we're only going to be together in marriage. And you can come together and say, whoa, I'm having trouble. I'm attracted to somebody. It could be somebody that they work with, it could be somebody that they exercise with, really anything. But the idea is that it can be prevented. That's obviously the best option, to be able to talk with one's mate about attraction. It's a very natural thing. We live in a society with males, females, all kinds of relationships going on, and people develop attractions because they're in a great deal of time, either in that carpool together, or in the office together, or working on a project together, and certain kind of rituals get developed. For lunch, or check-in phone call, or meetings, we see each other on a regular basis. Ideally, spouses would be able to say, whoa, I'm trying to feel something. And talk to their mate first. That's the best damage control.
And so is it like, kind of recognizing if that person is developing some level of attraction or attachment to somebody else, that it's sort of what's going on in our relationship that might be leading me, to feel these things for somebody else. And I really like that point too, because I think a lot of times people in our society, we do have a sort of, we'll just do what feels right, sort of attitude. But I think for you to really be saying pretty clearly, if you are feeling a temptation or you notice yourself starting to go down a road, don't do it. Think about possibly, what the implications of that could be, and take steps to address it, whether it's within the relationship or it might be individually in counseling or kind of exploring. Because sometimes somebody might be in an unhealthy or an unsafe relationship. It may not always be safe to address with that person. But I think stop yourself before you get to a certain point.
people do know when they're starting to fall in love. They know that, feel that. And if at that moment they can sort of gather themselves up and go back and talk to me about what this is our relationship. And that's kind of a, there are so many developmental hurdles that really lead to this. The first one that comes to mind is when someone has a child, a baby. And that, at that moment, both parents are becoming attached to the baby. And that's wonderful. And that's critically important. But it does sometimes siphon off the love. They may have more areas of conflict because they're not sleeping well, because they feel like you get to stay home with the baby, you're having all the fun. Or you get to leave, I'm not having so much fun. Or whatever it is, but roles change over time. One of the most destructive things in relationships today, in Greensboro, North Carolina, is the presence of traveling. A traveling sports team by families. Because they make an obligation that one parent has to go with one child to separate out family, and then the other spouse is with the other child. Pretty soon, that's two families. And there's a lot of time away. And there's a lot of loneliness, perhaps. There's also a lot of opportunity to meet other people. Develop these, we go on this traveling, so there is a great deal of communication. But that is one thing that I always question. God, is when your kid comes on a traveling team, really look at that first. And look at what is happening to the marriage, really in a step-by-step basis. Couples could really chart the development of their relationship. One is to say, it's close with the silly we fell in love. Everybody wants to fall in love. Everybody loves the idea of popping the question. Everybody loves a wedding. And yet, on day 2 of the marriage, very often they.
Yeah, and one thing we refer to a lot through our work with the Healthy Relationships Initiative is John Gottman's research, where he says that the average couple doesn't seek counseling until 6 or 7 years after they've started experiencing problems. And I think what you're saying really relates to that, because it's sort of like people might ignore some early signs that they're starting to be pulled apart, and then there might be other things, whether it's work or their child is on a traveling sports team or, a volunteer commitment or whatever it might be, that sort of innocently come in, but then as problems get ignored and don't get addressed, people aren't intentionally building in opportunities to connect, new distractions, new opportunities start to arise, and so then 7 years later, they end up in your office, and it's like, well, how did we get here? And so part of that, too, kind of going back to this point about what happened before, it sounds like what you're kind of saying is the affair happened, but really the seeds of that issue probably started a long time ago, and then that is just a symptom, maybe. And that's probably, again, we should separate probably out cases maybe where it's sex addiction or more ongoing patterns, but in a couple relationship, that's not good.
And very often, you hear the term, couples say they grew apart. And they really, literally do. And so what they really need to do is with some intentionality, they need to kind of reknit those fibers of the relationship, whether it's agreements about date nights, going away for a weekend together, getting away. Because if there's two mates and if you put a third person, child, whether it's a friend, whether you're going out with another couple, you don't talk. Yeah. Unless you're in that one-on-one. And that's wise. It's wise not to talk about your marriage with other people too much, but the idea that people stop really paying attention to how they're getting along, how to hold on to that attachment they have, how to create in their relationship opportunity to just bring them into.
Yeah. And so I guess part of kind of a good practical step at this point would be just that sort of reminder that understanding that there was some trajectory or some pathway that led to the discovery or disclosure of the affair. And I'm wondering, So let's talk about then an affair happens, you know, and kind of get to that point. Is there a typical thing that you see among the couples that you work with in terms of how the affair gets discovered? I would think normally it's maybe not the person who's had the affair coming and saying, you know, honey, I've done this thing and I realize it was wrong, but most of the time, especially in today's world, it's probably cell phone records, you know, text messages, seeing Facebook messages or whatever it might be. So, yeah, is there a typical thing, like what does that discovery or disclosure process look like?
Oh, it's amazing. I would say right now, most frequently people discover what's going on their mate's phone.
Yeah.
You know, because it's left open for half a second, grab it, look at it. Oh my goodness, what is going on here? And you know, the kind of strange thing, you know, we talked about what things in diary things in locks, right?
Yeah.
Not a little lock on your phone, but it's about as good as that lock, the locks on those diaries.
Yeah.
Very often discovery comes, you know, by an email sent to you, or a text message, or you notice that your spouse is taking their phone into the bathroom with them all the time, and staying in the bathroom way too long, you know, and you know, private conversations going on. Could be in bed, and one could be over there. You know, watching TV. So I would say that really the technology has played a critical role in beginning to note that, you know, something is going on that is not kosher.
Right, and even like probably decades earlier, it would be discovered because somebody would see you and then report back to you, or your partner would see you. And now it is like, you know, the technology, I think virtually everyone I know who's experienced an affair, like that's how it comes out, or people have suspicions, that's what's leading them to be suspicious. So, and I think, you know, what is that, when that person discovers it, I mean, it's shock, sort of trauma, you know, disbelief, probably a lot of anger, rage, whatever, you know, what do you see in the immediate aftermath?
Well, the immediate aftermath, there is this quest for more information. While people still have all that shock energy, you know, they really want to know details. They want to know information, how this happened.
And is that healthy? Like, how much information does somebody need to know?
Well, they need to know the answer.
Okay.
It does have its negative side. We'll talk about that. But on the positive side, if I have discovered that my mate is having an affair, I want to know everything. I want to know. I want to read all those text messages. I'm going to read everything in that phone, and you know, because people really need that sense of, you know, a big lie has been going on, and I don't know even know how long it's been going on. And so, you know, it is extremely important. I think self-disclosure is one of the key features, because actually we just have trust over that for a minute. Trust, I think it's broken. Is it backbone? And that takes a long time. And so, you know, if couples are really, you know, intent on what you know, they have to be completely transparent. And that may include hurtful information, which you kind of have to know. Because otherwise, what you don't know, you hallucinate about. And you fill in the blanks and you go, which restaurant did you go to? I don't know, so every restaurant becomes a bad thing. Or you walk through that park, I'm never going to that park again. You know, or every time a phone is picked up, whether it's a visitor or family. So that disclosure is critically important to rebuilding trust.
And it can be very painful too for the person. I mean, I think definitely to be able to move forward, what you're saying, to be able to rebuild the trust, that person is going to have some information. And then also, especially depending on how much information there is, or how long it's been going on, or what they see in those text messages, they should probably have some support at that point, right? I mean, a counselor,
absolutely,
to be able to work through that, not just their partner.
Oh, right, because the thing is that they really do need the help of a professional. Otherwise, they're going to turn into family and friends and begin talking about it. And even though it's given to them, you get told, yeah, that information gets out. They're damaging to children, they're damaging to the spouse. You are going to be able to work it out. You know, you told your friend all these terrible things about your mate, you know, and then you get back together, they have a good life. Right. And so it's very difficult like that to look when your life so over. So friendships definitely affected. Because now a friend becomes kind of a threat to rebuilding the relationship. Because they are going to be biased. And they are going to say, don't go back, or they're going to get back, or whatever they're going to say, but it's kind of coming from them, their thoughts, their communication. But sharing too much with other people, it's not a confidential environment. Yeah. It's really very destructive.
So that's another practical sort of point, to be very mindful of who you talk to about when you're going through. And not to say people shouldn't tell anyone, because we'll need to reach out to our friends or a close, trustworthy family member, but you may not want to talk to every single person that you know about what's going on. But it is a good idea at that point probably to reach out for individual counseling. Do you think in terms of that initial period, individual counseling is more helpful or couples counseling, or does it kind of depend on?
It kind of depends. If both mates are willing to jump into their, into therapy together, that's the best.
Okay.
But also, individual therapy is extremely important because things happen. Things change. People need to be able to begin to integrate. What is it? How do I feel? What is it like? To all of a sudden have this family and you think one thing's going on, and you think, well, you're so late at the office, really hard worker, and you find out, oh, you got up at 5 every day and didn't come home. So it's really important to get into therapy. I really like the EFT, emotional focus therapy, approach by Sue Johnson, as a way to seek therapy, but also forgiveness. She talks about it, 6 stage couples can go through. I think it's really very fascinating. I'd love to share it with you.
Sure, yeah, go ahead and why don't you tell us a little bit more about those different stages.
Okay. Moment here, make sure my memory is refreshed. Sue Johnson talks about the first thing, going to feel there. The hurt partner must be able to speak about their pain openly. Very often the person who's silent there is going to kind of shut it down. Really what needs to happen is that the partner who cheats on and all of their pain really needs to be fully expressed and understood. And they need to be very attentive and engaged and listen and really taking it in. What is this my partner? So, not out there, I don't know what to feel. This is what they felt. This is what they felt when they discovered there's huge bruise. This bruise. It's your entire body and soul. And so it's extremely important first to be able to share with them their pain. Again, the injuring partner. And that has been there to remain emotionally present and be able to listen and knowledge. Really important.
And that seems like something that's probably very hard for that person to do.
Right. In cases where it doesn't work well, things like gaslighting, crazy, over it. Right. Making up.
And as a counselor at that point, I would think you would sort of say, we're not going to be able to really move forward if the person isn't willing to really listen and be validating and acknowledge the level of pain. I mean, it's almost at that point probably the couple isn't going to be able to really recover from that. And of course, we know sometimes people stay together,
right,
and choose to be unhappy. So,
and they can be miserable for many years.
Right.
They can bring it up every week,
Yeah.
And they can kind of throw it in their mix. That's obviously not a good relationship. It's not a good relationship. Ideally, you would really learn something. Right. really learn, wow, we need to spend more time together. We need to really keep renewing our relationship. Yeah, in love, we need to communicate often, a lot. Help each other. We need to share our feelings. So in this process, it's about, the injured party being able to really talk about it. Or, on the other hand, ask whatever questions they need answers to. Do better, right? Because they have to kind of put this into their reality somehow.
Yeah, and I think an important point about that is if the partner who had the affair or affairs doesn't disclose that, they might think that they're protecting that person, but most likely other pieces of the truth will be coming out later, and it's actually prolonging for the person. So it's better in the beginning to get it all out there, fully address the pain, fully address the realities of the situation before you can move on to the next step. So what is the second step in this process?
Well, the second step is the Indian partner. You said. And then once that is true, and I just got 5 minutes ago, you said, really like couples to journal, because the person who has been cheated on has a million emotions, and they really need to get them kind of out of their body and down so they can deal with these issues, but have it sort of externalized. So it's not just running around through their bodies, their brains, their minds, and just constantly sort of like saying the affair. It's kind of like, okay, let's really deal with it. Let's come up with a person. You look at it and figure it out.
Yeah, that's always a good way to sort of process emotions and work through things and clarifying to the person what they're thinking.
Right. Because one of the things that you don't want to do, if you're interested in saving your marriage, is you don't want to become the most negative force in your marriage life. Because if you are, you're not going to like it. Or if you're unable at some point to do it, that's not going to be a healthy relationship. So you really, the person, ideally, they kind of following along, ideally the injured part of the one where they, take full ownership of the thing, but also the ability to express regret and remorse and to really live it, really walk in those shoes, and be really dedicated to the relationship. But again, the person who's been cheated on, has to have a way to express everything and be validated, but not overload the situation to the point where the relationship is
like punishing them all the time about it. And I think one way to think about that, sometimes in relationships, it's important to kind of, build intentional containers around things like that. So, for this, in our counseling session, or we'll talk about this for up to an hour a day, let's say. Sometimes people aren't quite that rigid, but over dinner is the one time we're going to talk about it. It's not going to be breakfast, lunch, snack time, dinner. It's going to be, this will be our time where we'll sit down and talk about how we're feeling about this for the day, kind of work through it. And then maybe we stop at 7 o'clock. No matter what's happening, we don't want to talk about it after 7. Or, and that's just one way to look at it. I did not mean that to be a very prescriptive piece. I think that when couples, whether it's rebuilding an affair or anything, sometimes you do need to put some boundaries around that so that it is not just taking over everything.
over the airwaves.
Yeah.
In the air 24. Yeah.
Yeah.
There's got to be some healthy stuff to balance out.
Right.
Unhealthy stuff.
And that's part of rebuilding trust, is honoring those boundaries too, and also being able to say, we're to really, for each person, really, especially the language used of the offending partner, the person who had the affair, is going to really be present for the 2 hours over dinner or whatever. So, and being present, they're not just, well, okay, sure, I'll do that, but then not actually showing up for that time. So that's part of rebuilding trust, is showing up for those times.
Absolutely.
And rebuilding that communication too.
I mean, the way that they were.
Right.
Sue Johnson in Commercial Focused Therapy talks about, when people get to know each other, kind of develop a thing, you know, and then they have fall in love. Talking about early in the marriage, early pre-marriage, they develop an attachment bond. And literally, when an affair happens, that bond is formed. You know, it's like skin tearing apart. And it takes a great deal of time to heal. That healing process, it really needs to be acknowledged that that's attachment injury. It's an injury to their attachment. And that's a big wound. And that they can't deny. And so, yes, as you say, they can't talk about 24/7 because that will become very old very quickly.
Right.
And you know, the amount of guilt on the offending party.
And I think sometimes people have to, in a situation like this, develop some tolerance for sitting with some uncertainty. Because, you know, it might be they want to say, are we either going to stay together or are we not? Or, you know, I don't know if I'm going to be able to forgive you, or I don't know if I'm going to be able to move forward, or whatever, or I don't know if I'm going to be able, if you're the partner who has the affair, like, I don't know if I'm going to be able to handle this level of negativity.
Right.
And so, you know, sometimes I think in this type of situation, it's like, let's commit to working on it today, you know, or we're both committed that for right now we're going to work on it. And that, sometimes people can't handle that uncertainty. And I think sometimes that leads people to prematurely make decisions, you know, just because they can't handle the discomfort of not knowing.
Right. Are you with me? No.
Yeah.
Are we going to work through this, or is this, you know, it becomes so negative?
And I think sometimes one thing that couples can do sometimes is, you know, give themselves a time frame. Like, we'll commit to 1 month, you know, that we will definitely work, and then we'll reevaluate that. Or sometimes it's, you know, 6 months or whatever that sort of might be comfortable for them, but it helps take off the pressure of needing to make decisions. And I think along those lines, to really acknowledge and remind people who might be going through this that it's normal to feel that uncertainty. You know, that's part of the process, and you don't have to rush into making any decisions, you know, sort of one way or another, because sometimes you're in the middle of this huge crisis, and you're not necessarily able to have the full information. You don't know what it's going to be like a month or two from now. You don't know, you know, if one partner is going to be able to get over their negativity, or the other partner, you know, maybe they're not going to be willing long-term to commit to recommitting to the relationship or to rebuilding the trust. And so it's, you know, just being able to sit with that uncertainty.
Yes, I think that's a really great point. And, you know, because you really can't force someone to say, come on back in the relationship, let's just stick it all back together and you're fine. It's not fine, because if it was fine, there wouldn't have been an affair.
Right.
So there is, you know, an underlying problem in relationship. Addressed by both. And this is a place where the person who is not cheating can become very guilty. They hear what was missing in the relationship for their part. And so it's nobody feels real good.
And that happens a little later, right? So the initial period is more really focused on the emotions, getting the information about the affair, you know, seeing if there's a willingness to work on it together. And then later might come for the partner who's been really hurt, some conversations about what the person is missing. You know, that just seems to be like if they move into that really quickly, that could be very invalidating for the person.
Well, it's I think that it's very useful for couples to re-engage in you know, as quickly as possible, whether it's a bunch of things, or, you know, let's talk on the phone or whatever. Let's kind of put this thing back together. And yes, there are problems we have to deal with. We really need to reestablish power. That is really what I think. Only when you start that, that's beginning to become repaired. And you think about, okay, so now let's put this in the thing. There were several injuries to their exercise. And maybe this started before they got married. Maybe this started when their child was born. Maybe this started when a mother-in-law moved in. Who knows? This all kinds of time.
And because it took so long, it might not happen overnight too, right? So I really like that way that you put it earlier, that sort of you need to almost think about it like you're going back and restarting your relationship. It takes time to get to know somebody. It takes time to build that attachment. The attachment has been broken, and possibly even further apart than if you're just, first time meeting somebody and don't know them. You have to also work through that pain and rebuilding that trust. So it's going to take some time. It's a long process. So what about some of the, we kind of talked about things that might happen before, some of the more immediate things. What does it look like kind of later? And especially if it is something that sort of continues to come up, let's say it's 6 months, a year later, and everybody's like, man, we should just be past this by now, but we're not.
Well, that's really key. There is no timeframe for who should be forward. Right? In fact, I think that's another way to reach your partner. Say, come on, get over it. Maybe we have to in the box. Maybe we talk about it like say, 40 minutes a day. But we can't just say, get over it. That is not going to work. People don't. They hold on for things, how do they feel it every day? It affects every street they drive down, they go.
And how longer term in that process then? What do you think is the healthy ways for partners to talk about that? Is it something anytime they drive by the street that the restaurant's on, that they know was the special place of the person that they're, the person that they had the affair with, and it brings up things? Do they need to talk about every detail, or is it like checking in once a week, or, I guess I'm just sort of curious what that looks like, if they're starting to move on, but things come up.
I think that the partner who's cheated really wants to establish what they have to do is be transparent options. That's a fair way to get evidence so that your partner is not limited by that saying, no, I don't want to go to that restaurant because, yeah, let's avoid that. So you begin to build into strengths. You're kind of stepping into each other and got to check it back a little bit. Should we go to a party where that person is going to be? Yeah, stay away from that person.
So setting some boundaries and honoring them, and I think too, kind of related to that, one thing that I've heard is that the partner who had the affair might agree to certain very concrete and practical things. So, for example, that their partner would always have access to the phone and the password, or whether it's a social media account or something like that. Maybe there's, if another example might be if they travel a lot for work, and maybe that's where the affair happened. Maybe they're either not traveling for work, or both partners don't go, or there's some sort of accountability system or processes put in place. And, on the one hand, I think that could feel very limiting or like restricting, but on the other hand, they're really steps toward rebuilding that trust. And it can be as concrete as that.
Exactly. And really, that can be one of the building blocks. Let's talk about situations we don't want to be in. Or if we have to be in a situation, how can we prevent it? How can we, begin to do things together? And, yeah, things like traveling for work, maybe it's like frequently talking. But it's if it does give them something very concrete to do, is protect your age, both, you both those by not, just abandoning each other, as in, I don't care what you do this weekend, I'm doing something else. Or, whether it's about, that's very hard for you. Would you like me to go with you?
And I think, too, that kind of makes me think about things that couples can do either proactively, working together if they're looking to, sort of build that trust and potentially work toward preventing the risk of an affair in their relationship, or after it's happened, kind of taking those steps. But putting some boundaries and talking together around, if it's, for example, a heterosexual couple, you say, like, I'm not going to be do dinners alone with somebody of the opposite sex, or drinks alone with somebody of the opposite sex. This is an example, setting some clear limits on that sort of thing, or, the types of things that you might communicate with over, like, Facebook Messenger or something like that, that you agree that you're not going to flirt with people, or if you are communicating with somebody, that you would always let the partner know that. Just kind of more proactive strategies and boundaries that people can put into place to have that. And, there has to be trust. I think I always think this is sort of like a sticky issue to some extent, because I don't know about you, but I've seen some people who, like couples, not that there's anything wrong with this, but it's just sort of a choice that some people make, that the partners have a shared Facebook page with the thought that way, if there's any communication through Facebook, they both know about it.
Very good.
And then, but on the other hand, that, people have to sort of be able to trust each other to be able to have that solid relationship. So, I don't know. I think it's probably, there's no right or wrong answers, but it's more about saying, like, what's comfortable for people. We also, it could go the other extreme toward, like, being really controlling of another person. So, kind of complicated, but I guess for partners, the practical takeaway would be more like the importance of just having some upfront discussion. Because I will say, too, the other thing, and then I'll stop talking so you can share more, but what people view as a violation of trust can be very different. For one person, it might be just communicating with an old boyfriend or girlfriend, even if it's just friendly and not flirtatious. And then for other people, that might not be an issue at all. It might have to involve some deeper emotional attachment or physical intimacy for them to view it as something that would be a violation.
Right. I think flirting is a really interesting phenomenon. And if you go out and the office is going to meet at the bar, it turns out it's just maybe two people.
Right.
And how do you handle that? And I think that when you are married and you really want to rebuild trust, you have to protect yourself. You have to really draw that boundary around yourself, which means that you also can't be giving these messages to other people who might want to hit on you. Right? You really have to be very clear and sort of mindful about, it's probably not a good idea for me to go to this program alone with everyone else bringing their mates. And, if I go by myself, I'm going to be sitting there talking to all the single people, and maybe that's not really, going to be a healthy experience. So, and a lot of people are they don't get it, that they're exposing themselves, that there's a risk. It's kind of like the risk, where you don't want to have any kind of sexual interaction at work. Kind of that way of figuring out, how do I kind of contain myself and present myself in a way that doesn't look like I'm looking for something.
Yeah, and setting those boundaries and, just, I think each person sort of needs to know themselves, and especially what are their vulnerabilities. If you're feeling especially lonely, and it'd probably be different being left at the, bar when all the other work people leave with one other person, and, if you're really secure in your relationship and you're just going to finish your drink or finish your meal over the next 15 minutes and head out, versus a conversation that turns into a few hours, because you're lonely and you're sad and you're feeling disconnected from your partner. So, it requires a lot of, I think, self-awareness for people. So let's see, we were down to our last.
Okay, because the thing is, you have to really be aware that whatever you might be sharing with someone, whether it's an intimate conversation, or telling them about, how your day went, if you're telling it to someone outside of your marriage, you are not telling the person in it. And so you're siphoning off a lot of the emotion, the excitement, the sharing, the talking. And sometimes couples limit each other by saying, I don't want to hear about your work, which is really kind of a horrible thing. Or anything that cuts off communication. Don't talk to me about this or that. Well, then you have to kind of start talking it up. Right. What's the same topic? In general, you want to bring it all home. And ideally, you want to sit at the end of the day and kind of go through the story of the day. Because the first time you tell the story of your day, what has happened, it's like the 100% story. Mm-hmm. And the second time you tell somebody, it's the 50% story. And then it goes down to the 5% thing. Yeah. Where a little bit like, how was your day?
Yeah.
So you
it was
bring
fun,
home.
Or I had a meeting or two and they went up, versus like the real, Camilla, let me know we have a question.
Yes, we do. So when rebuilding a relationship after an affair, how should the couple deal with family members or mutual friends who might have known about the affair before the non-offending partner did?
Great question. Well, obviously something has to be said to those people. If you kind of communicated, as I understand the question, communicated to somebody else about the affair, or they know about it. But
somehow they know about it.
They know about it. I think you really have to focus your own attention back on your relationship. And if people have an idea about something, and you can clarify it, you're right. You have problems. We're working on it. We're addressing it. Don't talk about it. Mm-hmm. Don't tell other people. Be upfront. Certainly people about that. But I think that the biggest thing is not to go seeking those other people. In a way, you want to shut them out and just have a small circle. As small as you can make it, two of you really talking about it. This is the time where you almost need like something around you, like a rope or something that would just signify we're off from this thing we're talking about. We're working on it. On the other hand, when people do see couples able to work through things, give them hope in their relationships. So in a way, we become a role model. If you're able to work through things and talk through things, other people kind of wonder, how'd you do that? Mm-hmm. So there is some learning that kind of travels between people.
Yeah, and I think kind of similar to what you said, like earlier about not sweeping that under the rug or just, trying to be like, oh, everything's fine. But I think if people, like you just said, you acknowledge and say, yeah, we're going through some hard times right now. Please either don't talk about it or I don't feel the need to share all the details with you, but know that we're working on it. Right. We're working hard on it, and we're trying to rebuild. But you're right. I mean, whether it's having an affair or any other number of issues that can come up for couples, relationships aren't easy, and people who are able to really work through and go through all the steps and the hard work that we've been talking about, that it can be very inspirational for other people because, again, a lot of people would view true recovery and rebuilding as something that is sort of an impossible task. And so you can really offer hope to others potentially through your story. And, I guess one piece that I would add to is that you can go through all the steps of trying to rebuild, and it may not work out in the end. And people shouldn't view that as a failure or as a waste of time because it can be a real opportunity for growth no matter what. I mean, obviously, ultimately, if people are putting in that effort, trying to work on it, trying to do their best and work through it and rebuild, then obviously their ultimate hope would be that they would work through it. But any opportunity for growth, personal growth or relationship growth is something that can be helpful.
I think that, there is the after the relationship. If you have children, you are going to be coming into each other's lives.
Right.
And that includes student family and all of that. And there is a problem with families kind of, all of a sudden dividing and saying, well, we're on her side, we're on his side. Whatever, they kind of take up sides. And that's very good. Once the problem is resolved, then you kind of want people to love you again. Just have an erased memory if possible, but it's not possible. No, they're not going to forget it. And they're going to have to be watching out a little bit. But you can't let other people's opinions and thoughts influence you. If you talk to your friends, you're going to do one thing or some off-the-cuff advice about something, and it's not about that. It's about the couple. As a couple reestablishing the bond, and then together deciding what they're doing. People who are lining up on different sides. What are we going to do to bring them back?
So as we're getting close to the end of our time, it's gone so quickly. I realize this is a topic we probably should have scheduled like a 4-hour program for, because I think we've really only scratched the surface. But what are some big sort of takeaway points that you wish that people listening today would walk away with?
First, I mentioned that loyalty really is the backbone of it. And healing from an affair takes as long or longer than a physically broken back. Think about a broken back on that. You have to give yourself the time and understand this is not something you connect yet. You're going to have to regrow. Also, again, looking at whether this is a one-time thing or whether this is a pattern. It's some kind of sexual addiction, need some specialized treatment. Never underestimate the amount of pain it's caused. Real. Minimize the damage. It won't work. You have to really come to grips with taking responsibility. And the person who's been harmed and hurt also has to take responsibility for themselves to begin the healing process. To work on, if I want this person back, I'm going to have to work on getting them to fall in love with me. To increase loyalty and relationship satisfaction when you make decisions together, share decisions, and loyalty, really feeling like I'm going to take this person with my life. They're really important to me. And both of you really needing to make that kind of a commitment. And also, as I said, you can prevent affairs by communicating openly about attraction. That goes a long way to deepening the trust you make. And it's a healthy expression of your emotions. And if you're feeling something for someone else, tend to hide it. But hiding it, secrecy, is essential. And so that would be the main thing.
Yeah, no, that's great and very helpful. And I've just really learned a lot from this discussion. I think it's such a difficult topic. It's one that actually people don't really talk about a whole lot. If you think about it, I don't know about you, but I didn't get a whole lot of training on this in my counseling program.
We don't get a lot of training either to be married people.
Yeah, people in general, and then even professionals often.
But then we certainly don't get, the lesson that says how to prevent an affair.
Right.
Or how to deal with it.
Yeah,
and how to use it as an opportunity for growth, learning, and figuring out how to renew the relationship and write a new story.
Yeah.
And that's kind of the other piece of the write a new story that talks about this attachment injury and how we work together. And that's a great example for everybody.
Yeah, well, thank you so much. This has all really been such really fascinating information. And we know that a lot of people do, if someone's going through this, it's a real difficult process for them. So hopefully some people will listen to this podcast and take some real useful information if they're going through it, and to make these available through our website. So thank you for being here. Great to see you as always. And thanks to those of you who have been part of this program. We hope that the information that you've learned here is something that you can apply and strengthen your relationship. Camilla did share the feedback form, so we ask you to complete that if possible, to share your thoughts on today's program. And then our next relationship booster will be next week on Friday, March 6th, and the topic is going to be family commitments and overscheduling. So thank you so much for being here today, and we'll look forward to having you back.